Hello, hello. How are you? Welcome back to Life Trials by EAC with yours truly. What's crack-a-lagging? ¿Cómo está mi niño? ¿Cómo está mi niño? How is everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing very well. Very, very well. Thank you again for tuning in with me on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon here on the East Coast of Florida in Davie. It is about 1:42 p.m. And remember, ask me how you can have your business promoted and advertised on my podcast. And if you're interested, please send me an email. Don't be scared. I don't bite. I don't eat people. I am very nice. Might look intimidating, but I am not. So if you would like to also support this podcast, please visit the website below for all platforms hosting this podcast. And subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Life Trials by EAC. Please, it would mean the world to me if you guys subscribe. Without further ado, me here, always trying to bring you guys the best of the best, you know. Without further ado, in today's episode, I wanted to bring to you guys the daily debacle of today's political news. As I had mentioned in my previous episode, I am catching up with the news, just breaking news every single day. But today I will be assessing the Supreme Court packing executive orders that were mandated. So on April 9th of this month, President Biden signed the executive order forming the Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court of the United States that compromises of a bipartisan, my culo, group of experts on the court, and to further ensue this so-called court reform debate, right? So the executive order proclaims to issue the commission's purpose in providing an analysis of the principal arguments in the contemporary public debate for and against the Supreme Court reforming, which includes an appraisal of the merits, the legality of the particular reform proposals, where a majority of the reform debate is fixated more on the membership, the length of service, and the number of justices, right? Yikes. On April 15th, Democrats, we all saw that show, that's literally opera show, which was orchestrated as another power grab issue on their agenda. And now they have their sights on the Supreme Court. I mean, it's just one thing after another because of the fact that they hold power at every single level of our government. They are just trying to seize power at any cost. So the House Democrats, which are on the Judicial Committee, sometimes I don't know how to say that word, along with some senators, staged their eyes on the newly radical power grab of attempting to pack the Supreme Court with more justices. And honestly, like, what blew my mind about this new initiative implemented as an executive order, executive action on commissioning a group of partisan individuals to study such a reform really isn't what we need right now in this country, right? We have so many problems. We have so many issues. I mean, it's just preposterous that the Democrats are now fixated on the Supreme Court and trying to pack that shit. But whatever, let's keep it going. So it's interesting because the lack of judicial diversity, when such a commission consists of scholars, majority on the left, I'm not sure how this commission is going to be bipartisan. What I really think it is, it's more of a knob to the left on the part of Biden to say, hey, we're doing something, but they're really not going to do anything. But however, just waste millions of dollars, have these law professors on the commission who are mainly driven by progressive policies, especially on the academic level, completely progressive. So I don't know how this commission that he needed an executive action on why would they call it bipartisan when it really isn't? But it's crazy because even the most liberal justice on the Supreme Court, Stephen Breyer, insisted such packing would be detrimental to the court and its legitimacy, which makes so much sense. And mind you, that is coming from the most liberal justice on the court, which is fucking weird. It's not anybody else. It's not the three winners that were, put into work by Trump, because they're all conservatives. It's the Democrats, the most liberal too, which is interesting because a lot of these articles that I assessed said and used that same phrase, very liberal justice. So I'm just trying to understand how the most liberal justice in the court insisted that this packing would not only be detrimental, but it would just diminish the legitimacy of the court itself. And it's crazy that it's not a political or partisan branch institution, but they want to make it that. And it could become that at any moment. And that's very scary because the court packing issue will be the end of the rule of law and the legitimacy of the Supreme Court of this country. And that is very scary thing, because the Supreme Court is the final tribunal that allows for us citizens to have our day in court, go through the due process procedures and be able to have a decision rendered, right? I don't know what's going to happen because this, very legitimate and an important tribunal that we have in this country that makes us a democracy and that ultimately makes decisions with the laws, previous cases, and statutes, packing the court will upend this tradition. So they won't even make such decisions or render any verdicts based on the rule of law or based on, precedents of other cases, statutes, etc., etc. It'll just be a political institution. And that's a very scary thing to even think that the Democrats really want to go after the Supreme Court, and then on top of the fact that they really want Mr. Breyer to retire. And I mean, the guy's fine. Just because he's 80 doesn't mean he has to retire. That's not what the, founding fathers put in the Constitution regarding this branch of government. They're supposed to serve lifetime appointments, not whenever the hell whoever's in office feels like, rendering at that moment, whatever their tickles their pickle at that moment. So I first wanted to at least discuss what is court packing to give you guys kind of like a layman's explanation. So this all started with respects to what had happened in the election of the 1800, where this was a major Supreme Court election battle. So that is kind of the reason why the whole court packing thing hasn't been brought up since then. And only the Democrats would love to bring up the past, like, the Jim Crow bullshit, now this. So imagine. So what does court packing mean, right? So that's a little different from saying you are nominating judges versus court packing. So court packing means that you're adding seats to the bench to fill them with judges of your choice to change the ideological composition of the judiciary, versus, as I had just mentioned, stating that you want to nominate judges that you like. There's a big difference between those two aspects of what that really entails. So, and being able to understand that, it's weird because the Constitution itself is silent on the number of Supreme Court justices that can serve, and has really only been changed through legislation on such judiciary actions, right? So of course, the Democrats, because they're in power now and they are just really seizing any opportunity to make some type of, imprint wherever they can. And whether it's detrimental, horrible, or just mundane, they need to make their point across because of the fact that the previous administration had 3 appointments, and that bothers them, obviously, and it's an unfortunate situation because it's really just all based on power grabbing. And it's sad because the rule of law will be forever gone. We will no longer have a democracy if we don't have rule of law. Like, it just they do not exist without one or the other. So why is this so bad? Because the problem is that the separation of our co-equal branches will be non-existent anymore. So in order to have a democracy, first, a democracy requires an independent judiciary. Independent, right? So the independence of the American courts from political influence is one of the defining features of our system of government. And our founding fathers understood the desperate need for checks and balances, right? Because imagine you're seeing that on the forefront as of today, okay? The Democrats run the executive, the legislative, and they're just trying to overrun the judiciary as well. Not to mention, the liberals really run every aspect of American society, whether it's Hollywood, the academics, societal issues, everything. So we obviously need checks and balances, especially at these branches as important as the judiciary, right? So the founding fathers, they gave the members of the court lifetime appointments, even though they didn't specifically state the number of justices that can be there, but they did, however, insinuate and lay out that the members of the court would attain a lifetime appointment in order to ensure that the justices ruled based on the law and not on the political mood of the current moment as you see it right now. So it's so crazy how history is playing out in today's moment so profoundly that you may not even realize it, but a lot of the stuff that our founding fathers had warned us about is happening, and that's scary. So I understand that the Supreme Court has not always been right and has, I have my disagreements, my dissents with respects to some of their decisions and stuff like that, However, over the course of our history, of our American culture history, the success of the American model of the separation of powers, and in order to further prevent an overreach, has made our democracy an example to the world. And that is what I guess the Democrats can give a shit about. And they really don't care. They don't even want a democracy anymore. If it was up to them, they would make this place like China. So this was an issue that I needed to assess because, as some of you may well know, I am going back to law school. I'm excited. And I just love the rule of law and just really having an understanding as to the procedures and processes that occur within our judicial branch. And I don't know, it's always been fascinating to me to really have these, dialogues about whether it's the Supreme Court, the appellate courts, or trial courts. It can be a little complicated, but it's something that I truly enjoy, as obviously you guys know, politics is my passion, and the rule of law is how I live my life, okay? It's just more based on a principle aspect that the rule of law is the foundation of this country. And if we don't have a foundation, we don't have a house. And if we don't have a house, we don't have shit. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, my website, and please subscribe to all the platforms that are hosting my podcast, Live Trials by EAC. Please also consider supporting me on my website, elizabethcharney.com, as any donations is enormously appreciated to keep my podcast up and running. So thank you guys again for tuning in to Live Trials by EAC with yours truly here on the daily news assessment of the Supreme Court packing. Stay tuned because I got another one coming out real soon. Bye.